The arrow went through her shoulder like fire through paper, and Anna Harmon's scream tore across the canyon so loud it sent ravens scattering from the cliffs. She hit the ground hard, tasted copper and dust, felt the world tilt sideways as boots thundered past her, as gunfire cracked the air, as everything she knew turned to blood and chaos in less than a heartbeat. 2 hours earlier, the sun had been kind. The wagon train rolled steady through the high desert, 16 families strong, heading west toward the promise of timberland and fresh water. Anna sat beside her husband, Thomas, on the front bench of their covered wagon. The canvas flapped gently in the wind. Her hands rested on her lap, fingers laced together, calm. She was 24 years old. She had left Missouri 3 months ago. She had buried her mother in Kansas. She had survived cholera, rattlesnakes, and a river crossing that nearly took the wagon under. She thought the worst was behind them. She was wrong. The morning had started peaceful enough. The wagon master, a gruff man named Dalton, with a beard down to his chest and a temper shorter than his patience, had called for an early start. They had camped near a dry creek bed the night before, and he wanted to make up time. The group had been moving slower than expected, slowed by broken axles, sick livestock, and the constant fear that dogged every westward journey. Fear of storms, fear of disease, fear of running out of supplies before reaching the promised land. Anna had packed their breakfast in silence that morning. Hardtack, dried beef and coffee, so weak it barely stained the water brown. Thomas had been quiet too, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He had been like that for days now, ever since they crossed into Oregon territory. Something about the land unsettled him. Too open, he said. Too exposed. Like they were being watched. She had brushed it off. Thomas always worried. It was his nature. He had worried about leaving Missouri, worried about the journey, worried about what they would find when they arrived. Anna had learned to let his fears pass through her like wind through tall grass. She had enough of her own to carry. But that morning, as she climbed onto the wagon and felt the weight of the sky pressing down, she wondered if maybe Thomas had been right all along. The wagon train moved in a loose line, dust rising from the wheels, the sound of creaking wood and jangling harnesses filling the air. Children ran alongside the wagons, laughing, chasing each other with sticks. Mrs. Kellen sang a hymn, her voice high and wavering. Old man Pierce rode at the rear on a mule, rifle across his lap, eyes scanning the ridges. He had fought in the Mexican War, or so he claimed. He told stories around the campfire about ambushes and blood, and men who died choking on their own screams. Anna had never liked those stories. They made her think of death, and she had seen enough of it already. The trail wound through a narrow canyon, walls of red rock rising on either side. The shadows were long and cool. The air smelled like sage and dust. Thomas kept one hand on the reins, the other resting on the rifle propped between them. He hadn't said a word since they started moving. Anna reached over, placed her hand on his knee. He flinched, then relaxed, glanced at her with tired eyes. "You all right?" she asked softly. He nodded, but she knew he wasn't. She could see it in the tightness of his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched and unclenched, the way his eyes kept darting to the rocks above. "Just a feeling," he muttered, "like something's wrong." "We're almost through the canyon," Anna said, trying to sound reassuring. "Dalton said we'd reach open ground by noon." "We'll be fine." Thomas didn't answer. He just stared ahead, knuckles white on the reins. That was when the first shot came. It cracked through the air like a whip, sharp and sudden. For a split second, no one moved. No one understood. Then Thomas jerked forward, hands flying to his chest, and Anna saw the blood. It spread across his shirt in a dark, wet stain, blooming like a horrible flower. His eyes went wide, mouth opening and closing, trying to form words that wouldn't come. He looked at her, confusion and fear painted across his face, and then he fell. He toppled sideways off the wagon, hit the ground with a sickening thud, and didn't move. Anna screamed. The sound ripped from her throat, raw and primal. She lunged for him, but the wagon was already moving, the horses spooked by the gunfire. The reins slipped from her hands. She grabbed for them, missed, and the wagon lurched forward, wheels bouncing over rocks. Around her, chaos erupted. Gunfire exploded from the ridges on both sides. Muzzle flashes sparked from behind boulders and scrub brush. Men on horseback poured down from the rocks, whooping and hollering, rifles blazing. They wore no uniforms, carried no flags. Just bandits, outlaws, men who killed for sport and profit. Wagons swerved, crashed into each other. Horses screamed, reared, bolted in every direction. Anna saw Mrs. Kellen, dragged from her seat by her hair, saw her hit the ground hard, saw a man in a black hat lean down and shoot her in the chest. She saw Old Man Pierce raise his rifle, fire once, then take a bullet to the face that snapped his head back like a broken doll. She saw children running, mothers screaming, fathers falling. The world became a nightmare painted in blood and smoke. Anna's wagon careened toward the canyon wall. She yanked hard on the reins, pulled the horses left. They obeyed, barely, and the wagon skidded sideways, wheels scraping rock. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it would burst. All she knew was she had to get out, had to run, had to survive. She jumped, her boots hit the dirt hard, pain shot up through her ankles and knees, but adrenaline drowned it out. She ran toward the rocks, toward cover, toward anything that wasn't the open killing ground. Behind her, the wagon crashed into a boulder, splintered apart, scattered their belongings across the canyon floor. Clothes, dishes, books, her mother's quilt, all of it trampled under hooves and wheels. She didn't look back. She just ran. That was when the arrow hit her. It came from the left, silent as a whisper. She didn't see it, didn't hear it, just felt the impact, like someone drove a red-hot poker through her shoulder. The force spun her around, knocked her off balance. She stumbled, fell to her knees, looked down in shock. The arrow shaft protruded from her shoulder, the point buried deep, blood already soaking through her dress. The pain came a heartbeat later, white-hot, searing. It spread through her arm and chest like wildfire, stealing her breath, her strength, her ability to think. She tried to stand. Her legs buckled. The ground tilted. Voices shouted around her, but they sounded distant, muffled, like she was underwater. Hands grabbed her hair, yanked her head back. She gasped, tried to scream, but only a choked whimper came out. A face leaned close, unshaven, scarred, eyes bloodshot and mean. The man grinned, showing broken teeth stained yellow with tobacco. His breath reeked of whiskey and rot. "Well now," he drawled, "looks like we got ourselves a pretty one." He reached for her throat with one hand, the other pulling a knife from his belt. The blade was long, curved, stained dark near the hilt. Anna's vision blurred. She tried to fight, tried to push him away, but her arms were weak, useless. The arrow shifted in her shoulder, and she screamed, the sound tearing her throat raw. The man laughed, a wet, phlegmy sound. He pressed the knife against her cheek, let the cold steel drag across her skin. "Don't worry, sweetheart," he whispered. "I'll make it quick." Maybe. Then his head snapped back. The gunshot was deafening, close enough that Anna felt the concussion in her chest. The man's grin froze, eyes going wide, and then he crumpled. Blood and brain matter splattered across the rocks behind him. The knife fell from his hand, clattered to the ground. Anna stared, unable to process what just happened. Another shot. Another man fell, clutching his throat as blood sprayed between his fingers. Then another, and another. The boots around her scattered. Curses rang out. Horses wheeled and bolted. Men dove for cover, returning fire toward the rocks. Anna looked up, vision swimming, and saw him, a man on foot, moving through the chaos like a ghost. He carried a rifle, worked the lever action with practiced ease, fired, chambered another round, fired again. He wasn't dressed like the outlaws. No duster coat, no hat. He wore buckskin trousers, dark and worn, a faded blue shirt, and moccasins that made no sound on the stone. His hair was long, black as midnight, tied back with a strip of leather. His face was hard, all sharp angles and weathered lines, eyes dark and focused. He moved like he was part of the land itself, fluid, silent, deadly. He reached her in seconds, dropped to one knee beside her. His eyes went to the arrow in her shoulder, then to her face. For a moment neither spoke. She stared at him, breathing hard, trying to understand, trying to make sense of why this man, this stranger, had just killed 3 men to save her. "Can you stand?" he asked. His voice was low, steady, no panic in it. Anna shook her head. Tears streamed down her face, hot and stinging. "It hurts," she whispered, voice cracking. "It hurts bad." He didn't flinch, didn't look away. He set the rifle down within easy reach, then turned his attention to the arrow. His hands hovered over the shaft, and she saw them tremble, just slightly, like he was weighing options, calculating risks. Then he looked at her again, and his voice came softer, almost gentle. "Stay still," he said. "I'm almost done." She didn't understand. Then he gripped the arrow shaft with both hands, and the world exploded into white-hot agony. He snapped it, broke the shaft clean about 3 inches from her skin, leaving the arrowhead buried deep inside. Anna screamed, a sound that came from somewhere primal and animal. She tried to pull away, but his other hand pressed firmly against her uninjured shoulder, holding her in place with surprising gentleness. "Easy," he said, voice still calm, still steady. "I know it hurts, but if I pull it through now, you'll bleed out before I can stop it. This way the pressure holds." Anna sobbed, her whole body shaking. Sweat poured down her face. Her vision darkened at the edges. "Who are you?" She managed to gasp between breaths. "Chakanka," he said, already pulling a strip of clean cloth from the pack at his belt. "I'm a scout, Modoc. I've been tracking this gang for 2 days. She blinked through the tears, trying to focus on his face. "Why didn't you warn us?" His jaw tightened. "I tried," he said quietly, wrapping the cloth around her shoulder with careful, practiced movements. "Your wagon master didn't trust me. Said he didn't need help from my kind. Told me to ride on or he'd shoot me himself." Anna's heart sank. She knew what he meant. She had heard the words before. Heard Thomas say them. Heard Dalton say worse. Heard people in the wagon train talk about savages and heathens, and how the only good Indian was a dead one. She had never said those things herself, but she had never stopped them either. And now one of those so-called savages was the only reason she was still breathing. She wanted to apologize, wanted to say something, anything to make it right. But the pain stole her words. Chakanka tied the cloth tight around her shoulder. She hissed, bit down on her lip hard enough to draw blood. "That'll hold for now," he said, "but we need to move. They're regrouping. They'll come back to finish the job." "I can't walk," Anna whispered, voice barely audible. He studied her for a long moment. Then he stood, slung his rifle over his shoulder by the leather strap and bent down. Before she could protest, he lifted her. One arm slid under her knees, the other around her back, cradling her like she weighed nothing at all. He moved quickly, silently, carrying her toward a cluster of rocks 30 yards away. Behind them, the wagon train burned. Thick black smoke rose in columns, blotting out the sun. The screams had stopped. Only the crackle of fire remained, and the distant sound of hooves fading into the desert. Anna turned her head, looked back over Chakanka's shoulder. She saw bodies sprawled on the ground, saw wagons overturned, contents spilled and burning, saw everything she owned, everything she had carried across 1,000 miles of hard country, reduced to ash and ruin. "Thomas," she whispered, the name breaking on her lips. Chakanka didn't slow down. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, and she heard genuine sorrow in his voice. She closed her eyes. The tears came harder now, not from the pain in her shoulder, but from the pain in her chest, the kind that no bandage could stop. Thomas was dead, shot down before he even knew what was happening. The others were dead too, Mrs. Kellen, old man Pierce, the children who had been laughing just minutes ago, all of them gone. And she was alive only because a man she didn't know, a man her people had called savage and heathen, had decided her life was worth saving. They reached a narrow crevice in the rocks, hidden from view by an overhang of stone. Chakanka set her down gently against the cool wall, then crouched beside her. He pulled a canteen from his belt, uncorked it with his teeth, and held it to her lips. "Drink," he said. She drank. The water was warm, tasted like leather and metal, but it was the best thing she had ever felt. It cut through the dust in her throat, cleared her head just enough to think. He pulled the canteen back, wiped her mouth with his thumb. His touch was surprisingly gentle. "You're in shock," he said, studying her face. "Your body's trying to shut down. You need to stay awake." "I don't want to," Anna whispered, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. "I know," he said, "but if you sleep now, you won't wake up." "So you're going to stay with me? Understand?" She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. His face was weathered, lined with scars that spoke of a hard life. One scar ran from his temple down to his jaw, pale against his dark skin. His eyes were tired, old beyond his years. She guessed he was maybe 30, maybe older. Hard to tell. Men aged fast out here. Violence and hardship carved years into faces like water-carved stone. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer right away. He checked the cloth around her shoulder, made sure it was secure, then sat back on his heels. His eyes drifted toward the mouth of the crevice, scanning for movement. "Because I've seen enough death," he said finally, voice flat, "and because no one deserves to die like that. Not even strangers." Anna swallowed hard. "They'll come back, won't they?" "Yes, and you'll fight them. If I have to. There were at least a dozen of them. I counted 14. She stared at him, disbelief cutting through the haze of pain. "You're going to die trying to save me." Chekanka looked out toward the open desert, then back at her. His expression didn't change. "Maybe," he said, "but I've been dying since I was 10 years old. Might as well make it count for something." His words hung in the air between them, heavy and final. Anna didn't know what to say, didn't know how to process any of this. Hours ago she'd been safe. Hours ago she had a husband, a future, a reason to keep moving west. Now she had nothing but a broken arrow lodged in her shoulder and a stranger's quiet promise to keep her alive. Outside the crevice the wind picked up. Dust swirled in shafts of sunlight, and somewhere in the distance, faint but growing louder, came the sound of horses. Chekanka stood in one fluid motion, picked up his rifle, checked the chamber. His movements were calm, methodical. "They're coming back," he said quietly. Anna's breath caught in her throat. Fear clawed at her chest. "What do we do?" He looked down at her, and for the first time she saw something flicker in his dark eyes. Not fear, but something close to it. Something human. Something that said he knew exactly how this might end. "You stay here," he said, voice firm, "and you stay quiet. No matter what you hear, you don't move. You don't make a sound. You understand?" She nodded, unable to speak. He turned to leave, then stopped, looked back over his shoulder. "What's your name?" "Anna," she whispered. "Anna Harmon." He nodded once, committing it to memory. "Anna," he repeated, like he needed to know who he was dying for. Then he stepped out into the light, rifle in hand, and the shadows swallowed him whole. The silence that followed was worse than the gunfire. Anna pressed herself against the cold stone wall, every muscle in her body tensed, listening. Her shoulder throbbed with each heartbeat, a steady pulse of agony that made her visions swim. She could taste blood in her mouth where she had bitten her tongue. The cloth wrapped around her wound was already soaked through, dark and wet. Outside the crevice, she heard boots scraping on rock. Slow, deliberate. They were searching, hunting. She held her breath, pressed one hand over her mouth to keep from making any sound. Through the narrow opening, she could see strips of sunlight, shadows moving across the canyon floor. 3 men, maybe 4. They moved like wolves, circling wounded prey. One of them spoke, voice rough and gravelly. "She came this way. Blood trail goes right up to these rocks." Another voice, younger, eager. "Maybe she crawled into one of these holes to die. Save us the trouble. Or maybe someone's hiding her," the first voice said. There was a pause, then the unmistakable sound of a rifle being cocked. Come out, wherever you are!" Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked around the crevice, desperate for anything she could use as a weapon. There was nothing, just rock and dust and her own fading strength. She thought about Chekanka, wondered where he had gone, if he was already dead. Maybe he had decided she wasn't worth dying for after all. Maybe he had left her here to face them alone. Then she heard it. A whistle. Low, quick, like a bird call. It came from somewhere above, from the rocks overhead. The men heard it too. They stopped moving. "What was that?" The younger voice asked. "Quiet," the older one snapped. Another whistle. This one from a different direction, off to the left. Then another from the right. The men were turning in circles now, rifles raised, trying to pinpoint the source. Anna realized what Chikanka was doing. He was surrounding them, making them think there were multiple attackers, turning the hunters into the hunted. The first shot came without warning. One of the men dropped, clutching his legs, screaming. The others scattered, diving behind boulders, returning fire blindly into the rocks. Gunshots echoed off the canyon walls, deafening. Smoke filled the air. Anna covered her ears, squeezed her eyes shut, prayed it would end quickly. It didn't. The battle raged for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. She heard men shouting, cursing, calling to each other. Heard bullets ricochet off stone. Heard the wet thud of lead hitting flesh. Heard screams cut short. And through it all, she never heard Chikanka make a single sound. He moved like a ghost, striking from the shadows, disappearing before they could respond. Then, suddenly, silence again. Heavy. Absolute. Anna waited, barely breathing. Waited for footsteps. Waited for voices. Waited for someone to find her hiding place and finish what the arrow had started. Anna... Her eyes snapped open. It was Chikanka's voice, quiet but clear. She looked toward the opening of the crevice and saw him there, silhouetted against the light. His rifle hung loose in one hand. Blood spattered his shirt, his face. But he was standing. He was alive. "It's over," he said. She tried to stand, managed to get halfway up before her legs gave out. He was beside her in an instant, catching her before she hit the ground. "Easy," he said. "You've lost too much blood. We need to get that arrow out." "Here?" she gasped. "Now? The longer it stays in, the worse it gets," he said. He helped her sit back against the wall, then knelt in front of her. From his pack, he pulled out a small leather pouch, opened it to reveal a bone needle, thread made from sinew, and a small glass vial filled with clear liquid. "What is that?" Anna asked, eyeing the vial. "Whiskey," he said, "for cleaning the wound. And for you, if you want it." She nodded quickly. "I want it." He handed her the vial. She uncorked it with shaking hands, took a long swallow. The liquor burned going down, made her cough, but warmth spread through her chest, and the edges of her pain softened just slightly. She took another drink. "That's enough," Chikanka said, taking the vial back. "I need you conscious." He set the vial aside, then looked at her shoulder. The broken arrow shaft protruded about 3 inches from her flesh, the surrounding skin angry and swollen. He touched it gently, testing. Anna winced, bit back a cry. "I'm going to push it through," he said, meeting her eyes. "The head is barbed. If I pull it back out the way it came, it'll tear you apart inside. But if I push it forward, it'll come out clean." Anna's stomach turned. "That's going to hurt." "Yes," he said simply. "More than anything you've felt so far." She closed her eyes, took a shaky breath. "Do it. Look at me," he said. She opened her eyes, found his dark gaze steady and calm. "When the pain comes, you focus on me. You breathe with me. Understand?" She nodded. He positioned himself, placed one hand on her uninjured shoulder to brace her, the other gripping the broken arrow shaft. "Ready?" "No," she whispered. "Good answer," he said. Then he pushed. The pain was unlike anything Anna had ever experienced. It was fire and lightning and being torn apart from the inside. She screamed, couldn't help it, the sound ripping from her throat, raw and primal. Chikanka held her steady, kept pushing, his face set in concentration. She felt the arrowhead moving through muscle and tissue, felt it scrape against bone, felt it emerge from the back of her shoulder. Then it was out. She collapsed against him, sobbing, shaking uncontrollably. He caught her, held her with surprising gentleness. "It's done," he said quietly. "The worst is over." He laid her back down, moved around behind her. She felt him examining the exit wound, felt his fingers probe the torn flesh. Then came the whiskey, poured directly into both wounds. She screamed again, arched her back, every nerve ending on fire. "I know," he said, voice steady. "I know it hurts. But infection will kill you faster than blood loss." He worked quickly after that. Threaded the bone needle with sinew, began stitching. Anna felt every puncture, every pull of the thread, but the pain was different now. Sharper but cleaner. She focused on breathing, on staying conscious, on the feel of his hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Where did you learn this?" she asked through gritted teeth. My mother, he said. She was a healer. Brought me before the soldiers came. What happened to her? His hands paused for just a moment. She died, he said quietly. Along with most of my people. Anna wanted to ask more, but the look on his face stopped her. Some wounds ran deeper than arrows. Some pain couldn't be stitched closed. He finished the back wound, tied off the thread, then moved to the front. More stitches, more pain. Anna drifted in and out, her mind foggy from blood loss and whiskey. She saw flashes of memory. Thomas smiling at her on their wedding day. Her mother's face. The wagon train rolling across endless prairie. All of it felt distant now, like looking at someone else's life. Done, Chikanka said finally. He wrapped clean cloth around her shoulder, tied it securely but not too tight. That should hold if you don't do anything stupid. Like what? Anna asked weakly. Like trying to walk, he said. He stood, gathered his supplies, packed them away. Then he looked toward the mouth of the crevice. The sun had moved. It was late afternoon now, shadows growing long. We can't stay here. More of them might come. Where do we go? There's a place, he said. Old hunting camp. My people used it before we were driven out. It's hidden, has water. We can rest there, let you heal. How far? 2 miles, maybe 3. Through rough country. Anna looked down at herself. Her dress was torn, soaked with blood. Her shoulder was a mass of bandages and pain. She could barely lift her arm. I can't make it. You won't have to, he said. He crouched beside her again, positioned himself. Get on my back. What? I'll carry you, he said. It's the only way. Anna stared at him. You can't carry me that far. Watch me, he said. She didn't have the strength to argue. He helped her onto his back, his rifle slung across his chest, his pack secured. She wrapped her good arm around his shoulders, tried not to think about how close they were, how intimate this was. A week ago, she wouldn't have let a Modoc man touch her. Now her life depended on one. He stood, adjusted her weight, and started walking. His steps were steady, sure, despite the burden. Anna rested her cheek against his shoulder, too exhausted to care about propriety anymore. Through the haze of pain and fatigue, she found herself noticing small things. The smell of sage and leather, the steady rhythm of his breathing. The way his hair, still tied back, brushed against her face. They left the canyon behind, moved into open desert. The sun beat down mercilessly. Heat shimmered off the rocks. Anna drifted, half-conscious, aware of movement but not much else. Once she thought she heard voices in the distance. But when she tried to focus, there was only silence and the crunch of Chikanka's footsteps on gravel. Tell me something, she murmured against his shoulder. What? He asked, not breaking stride. Why were you tracking those men? He was quiet for a long moment. They killed a family, he said finally. Homesteaders. Father, mother, 3 children, burned their house, stole their livestock, left them in the ashes. Anna's throat tightened. Did you know them? The father hired me once to scout for deer, Chikanka said. Paid me fair, treated me like a man instead of an animal. That's rare, so you're doing this for revenge? I'm doing this because someone has to, he said. The law doesn't come out this far. The army doesn't care unless it's their own being killed. So men like that gang, they do whatever they want. Take whatever they want. Kill whoever they want. Someone has to stop them, even if it kills you. Everyone dies, he said simply. Might as well die for something that matters. His words settled over her like a heavy blanket. She had never thought about death that way. In her world, death was something to avoid, to fear, to run from. But for Chikanka, it seemed almost inevitable. Just another part of the landscape, like rocks and sky. The sun was setting when they finally reached the camp. It was hidden in a small canyon, sheltered by overhanging rocks. A spring bubbled up from the ground, forming a small pool before disappearing back into the earth. The remains of old fire pits dotted the area, surrounded by scattered stones that had once been shelters. Chikanka set Anna down gently beside the spring, then immediately began gathering firewood. She watched him work, moving with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, he had a fire going, flames crackling and popping in the growing darkness. He filled his canteen from the spring, brought it to her. Drink, he said. You need to replace what you lost." She drank deeply. The water was cold, clean, tasted like minerals and earth. It was the best thing she had ever tasted. When she finished, he took the canteen back, drank himself, then set about making camp. He worked in silence, and Anna found herself studying him in the firelight. His movements were economical, nothing wasted. He checked his rifle, counted his ammunition, laid out his bedroll. Everything had its place, its purpose. She wondered what his life had been like before this, before his mother died, before his people were driven out, before he became a scout who tracked killers through the desert. "You're staring," he said without looking up. Anna felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Sorry, I was just thinking." "About what?" "About how strange this is," she said. "This morning I was married. I had a home, a future. Now Thomas is dead, everything I owned is gone, and I'm sitting in a hidden canyon with a man I didn't even know existed." Chikanka looked at her then, firelight dancing in his eyes. "Life changes fast out here," he said. "The only constant is survival." "Is that enough?" Anna asked. "Just surviving?" "It has to be," he said, "because the alternative is dying, and I'm not ready for that yet." He pulled dried meat from his pack, handed her a piece. She ate mechanically, her body demanding food even though she had no appetite. The meat was tough, salty, but it gave her strength. As the night deepened, the temperature dropped. Anna shivered, her thin dress offering little protection. Chikanka noticed. He pulled a blanket from his pack, draped it over her shoulders. The gesture was simple, practical, but something about it made Anna's eyes sting with sudden tears. Kindness. After everything that had happened, after all the violence and death, here was simple human kindness. "Thank you," she whispered. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." He nodded, said nothing, turned back to the fire. They sat in silence for a long time. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the distance a coyote howled. The stars emerged one by one, filling the sky with cold light. Anna found herself wondering if Thomas could see those same stars wherever he was now. If her mother was with him, if they were watching over her, wondering how she had ended up here. "Chikanka," she said quietly. "Yes, those men, the ones you killed today. Do you think there are more?" He stared into the flames. "There are always more," he said. "This gang, they're part of something bigger. They work for a man named Rourke. He runs guns, whiskey, stolen goods, controls most of the territory between here and California. The men today, they were just dogs. Rourke is the wolf," Anna's blood ran cold. "And he'll come looking for them?" "Eventually," Chikanka said, "but not tonight. Tonight we rest. Tomorrow we figure out what comes next." "What does come next?" Anna asked. "I have nowhere to go. No money, no supplies. I don't even have shoes that aren't falling apart." Chikanka looked at her, his expression unreadable. "There's a settlement," he said. 3 days' ride northeast. Small, but safe. You could start over there, alone. People do it all the time." "Not people like me," Anna said. "I'm a woman. I can't homestead alone. Can't work most jobs. The only options are getting married again or becoming a—" She stopped, couldn't bring herself to say the word. "Then we'll figure something else out," Chikanka said firmly. "But first you heal. One problem at a time." His certainty was almost comforting. Almost. Anna pulled the blanket tighter around herself, exhaustion finally overwhelming fear. Her eyelids grew heavy. The warmth of the fire, the sound of Chikanka's steady breathing, the knowledge that someone was watching over her, all of it combined to pull her towards sleep. "Rest," Chikanka said softly. "I'll keep watch. You need sleep too," Anna mumbled. "I'll sleep when you're safe," he said. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he couldn't protect her forever, that eventually he would have to let her go. But the words wouldn't come. Sleep dragged her down into darkness, and for the first time since the arrow had pierced her shoulder, Anna Harmon dreamed of something other than death. She dreamed of water and green grass in a place where no one was hunting her. Anna woke to the smell of coffee and smoke. For a disorienting moment, she thought she was back in the wagon with Thomas, morning breaking over the prairie. Then the pain in her shoulder flared hot and immediate, dragging her back to reality. She opened her eyes to find dawn painting the canyon walls in shades of rose and gold. The fire had been built up again, flames licking at a small pot balanced on stones. Chikanka sat across from her, cleaning his rifle with methodical precision. He had stripped it down to components, wiping each piece with an oiled cloth. His movements were practiced, almost meditative. When he noticed her watching, he nodded once but didn't speak. Anna sat up slowly, every muscle in her body screaming protest. The blanket fell from her shoulders. She looked down at her bandaged shoulder, saw fresh blood had seeped through during the night, but not as much as she feared. The stitches were holding. "How do you feel?" Chikanka asked, reassembling the rifle with quick, efficient clicks. "Like I was trampled by horses," Anna said hoarsely. Her throat was raw, her mouth tasted like copper and ash. "But alive, I suppose." "That's better than the alternative," he said. He reached for the pot, poured dark liquid into a tin cup, brought it to her. "Coffee? Real coffee, not the burnt grain substitute." "Drink it." She took the cup gratefully, sipped. It was strong enough to strip paint, bitter as sin, but it cleared the fog from her head. "Where did you get real coffee?" "Took it off one of the men yesterday," he said simply. "Dead men don't need luxuries." The casual way he said it should have disturbed her, but Anna found she couldn't muster outrage. Those men had killed Thomas, killed the others, would have killed her without hesitation. If Chikanka took their coffee, their ammunition, their boots, if he needed them, she couldn't find it in herself to object. She drank more coffee, felt warmth spread through her chest. "What's the plan?" Chikanka sat back, regarded her with those dark, assessing eyes. "Your wound needs at least 3 days before you can travel hard. We stay here, keep you still, make sure infection doesn't set in. After that, we head northeast to the settlement I mentioned, and then what?" Anna asked. "You leave me there and go back to tracking killers." "That's the job," he said. "It's a death sentence," Anna countered. "How long do you think you can keep this up before your luck runs out?" His expression didn't change. "Luck ran out years ago. What I have now is skill and spite." "That's enough." Anna studied him over the rim of her cup. In the morning light, she could see details she had missed before. The scar on his face was old, pale, and settled into the lines of his skin. But there were others. Smaller ones on his hands, his arms, marks of violence accumulated over years. This was a man who had survived when he shouldn't have, over and over again. "Tell me about your people," she said quietly. Chikanka's hands stilled on the rifle. For a long moment he didn't respond. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat, emotionless, like he was reciting facts from a history book. "The Modoc lived around the lakes, the marshes, the rivers. We fished, hunted, gathered, had our own territory, our own ways. Then the white settlers came, wanted the land, wanted the water. Didn't want us." He set the rifle aside, stared into the fire. "They tried to move us. Put us on a reservation with the Klamath, our old enemies. Told us it was for our own good. My mother tried to make it work. Tried to teach me to adapt, to survive in their world. But the rations never came. Disease spread through the camps. People died hungry, died sick, died hopeless." Anna's chest tightened. She had heard stories about the reservations, but they had always been abstract, distant. Just policies and politics. Hearing it from someone who had lived it made it real in a way that turned her stomach. "My mother got fever one winter," Chikanka continued. "The Indian agent wouldn't give us medicine, said there wasn't enough, that we should pray to the white man's God instead. She died in my arms, shaking so hard her teeth cracked. I was 14. "I'm sorry," Anna whispered, the words feeling inadequate. "Sorry doesn't bring back the dead," Chikanka said, but there was no anger in his voice, just weariness. "After she died, I left. Figured I'd rather die free than rot on the reservation. Taught myself to track, to hunt, to fight. Sold my skills to whoever would pay. Sometimes that's settlers. Sometimes it's the army. Sometimes it's people like you who need help and have nowhere else to turn." He looked at her then, and she saw something raw in his eyes. "I know what your people think of mine. I know the stories you tell your children about savages and heathens. I've heard it all, been called worse than you can imagine. But at the end of the day, I'm still here, still breathing, Still fighting. That has to count for something. Anna set down her cup. Her hands were shaking. I never thought about it, she admitted. Any of it. Indians were just something that existed out here, like buffalo or mountains. I never considered that you had families, mothers who loved you, that you suffered. She stopped, ashamed. That makes me a terrible person, doesn't it? Makes you like most people, Chikanka said. They don't think about suffering they can't see. But now you've seen it. Now you know. What you do with that knowledge is up to you. The weight of his words settled over her. Anna thought about Thomas, about the things he had said around the campfire. The casual dismissals, the jokes, the way he had warned Dalton not to trust any Indians who approached the wagon train. She had never challenged him, had nodded along, accepted it as truth. How many other truths had she accepted without question? A sound broke the silence. Distant but distinct hoofbeats, multiple horses moving fast. Chikanka was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. He moved to the edge of the camp, pressed himself against the rock wall, peered out toward the desert. How many? Anna whispered, fear spiking through her. 5, maybe 6, Chikanka said quietly. Coming from the south. Could be traders, could be settlers, could be Rourke's men, Anna finished. Chikanka's jaw tightened. Get behind those rocks, he said, gesturing to a cluster of boulders near the spring. Stay low, stay quiet. If shooting starts, you run. Follow the canyon north. There's a pass that leads to higher ground. I'm not leaving you, Anna said. You don't have a choice, Chikanka said firmly. I can fight. You can barely stand. Now move. Anna wanted to argue, but the look on his face stopped her. She crawled behind the boulders, pain shooting through her shoulder with every movement. From her hiding spot, she could see Chikanka positioned at the canyon entrance, rifle raised, perfectly still. He looked like part of the landscape itself, just another shadow among the rocks. The hoofbeats grew louder. Voices carried on the wind, rough and laughing. Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. She pressed herself against the cold stone, tried to make herself smaller, invisible. 6 riders appeared at the canyon mouth. They wore dusty trail clothes, gun belts slung low on their hips. One of them had a badge pinned to his vest, tarnished and crooked. They didn't look like lawmen. They looked like wolves wearing sheep's clothing. The one with the badge raised a hand, and the group stopped. He stood in his stirrups, surveyed the canyon with sharp, calculating eyes. Someone's been here, he called out. Fire's still warm. Chikanka stepped into view, rifle trained on the man's chest. That's because I'm still here, he said evenly. The riders' hands went to their guns, but none drew. The man with the badge smiled, showing teeth stained brown with tobacco. Easy now, he said. We're not looking for trouble. Name's Foster. I'm a federal marshal. These are my deputies. No, you're not, Chikanka said flatly. Rourke's men don't get to wear badges, even stolen ones. Foster's smile widened. You got me there, Indian. We heard there was a survivor from that wagon train. A woman, pretty thing, wounded. We're here to help her into a grave maybe, Chikanka said. Now that's unfriendly, Foster said. He dismounted slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. But Anna could see the others shifting, spreading out, flanking. They were getting into position. We just want to talk to her. Ask a few questions about what she saw. Then we'll be on our way. She's not here, Chikanka lied smoothly. Then you won't mind if we look around, Foster said. He took a step forward. Chikanka's rifle didn't waver. One more step and I paint the rocks with your skull, Chikanka said, voice cold as winter stone. Foster stopped. The smile was gone now, replaced by something uglier. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Savage. We're 6 guns to your 1. You might drop me, might drop another, but the rest will cut you down. Then we'll find the woman anyway. So why not make this easy? Because easy isn't in my nature, Chikanka said. Anna watched from behind the rocks, mind racing. 6 against 1. Even with surprise, even with Chikanka's skill, the odds were impossible. They would kill him, then find her, then finish what the arrow had started. Unless she did something. She looked around desperately, saw a loose rock the size of her fist. Not much of a weapon, but it was something. She picked it up with her good hand, judged the distance to the nearest rider. If she could create a distraction, give Chikanka an opening. Before she could act, one of the riders, a young man with a scarred lip, grew impatient. He drew his pistol fast, fired at Chikanka. The shot went wide, chipped stone from the canyon wall, but it broke the standoff. Chikanka moved like lightning. His first shot caught Foster in the throat, sent him spinning backward. The second took the young shooter in the chest before he could fire again. Then Chikanka was moving, rolling behind cover as the remaining four opened fire. Bullets screamed through the air, sparked off rocks, tore up dust. Anna threw her rock. It hit one of the riders in the shoulder, not enough to hurt, but enough to startle. The man turned, saw her hiding spot, grinned like a cat spotting a mouse. "There she is!" he shouted. Two of them broke off, spurred their horses toward her position. Anna scrambled backward, pain forgotten in the surge of pure terror. She looked around for another weapon, saw nothing but small stones and dirt. The riders were almost on her. A rifle cracked. One rider jerked sideways, fell from his horse. The animal bolted, disappeared down the canyon. The second rider wheeled around, searching for the shooter. Another crack. He clutched his side, slumped forward over his horse's neck. The animal stopped, confused, and the rider slid to the ground. Anna looked up, saw Chikanka standing on a boulder above her, rifle smoking. His face was splattered with blood, his shirt torn, but he was standing. Below, the last two riders were retreating, spurring their horses hard, not bothering to take their dead. Chikanka watched them go, didn't lower his rifle until they were out of sight. Then he dropped down beside Anna, grabbed her good arm. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. "No," she gasped. "No, I'm fine." I'm fine," he said, but she could see he was lying. Blood soaked his left side, spreading dark across the fabric. He had been hit. "You're shot," Anna said, reaching for him. He pulled away. "Grazed," he said. "Nothing serious." "Let me see," Anna insisted. He looked at her, seemed about to argue, then relented. He lifted his shirt. A bullet had carved a furrow across his ribs, deep enough to bleed freely, but not deep enough to kill. At least not immediately. But out here, without proper treatment, infection could finish what the bullet had started. "Sit down," Anna said, using her command voice, the one she had used to manage the household back in Missouri. Chikanka surprisingly obeyed. She tore a strip from the bottom of her dress, already ruined beyond saving. "This is going to hurt." "Everything hurts," he said. She cleaned the wound with water from the spring, tried to be gentle but thorough. Chikanka's jaw clenched, muscles in his neck standing out like cords, but he didn't make a sound. When she finished, she wrapped the cloth around his torso, tied it as tight as she dared. "You need proper doctoring," she said. "We both do," he replied. "But there's no doctor between here and the settlement." "Then we need to get to the settlement faster," Anna said. Chikanka shook his head. "Those two got away. They'll tell Rourke where we are. He'll send more men, better armed, better organized. We can't outrun them with you wounded and me bleeding." "So what do we do?" Anna asked, hearing the desperation in her own voice. Chikanka was quiet for a long moment, thinking. His eyes scanned the canyon, the rocks, the narrow passes. "We don't run," he said finally. "We make them think twice about following." "How?" "We set a trap," he said. "These canyons are full of choke points, places where one man with a rifle can hold off a dozen. We pick our ground, we wait, and when they come, we make them regret it." Anna stared at him. "That's suicide." "Maybe," Chikanka said. "But it's better than running until we collapse. At least this way, we choose where we die." The casual acceptance in his voice chilled her. "I don't want to die," Anna said quietly. "Neither do I," Chikanka said, meeting her eyes. "Which is why we're going to win." He stood, swayed slightly, steadied himself. "Rest for one more hour. Eat something, drink water. Then we move to higher ground and prepare. Tonight, when Rourke's men come, they're going to learn what it costs to hunt a Modoc warrior and the woman he's protecting." Anna watched him walk back to the fire, watched him check his ammunition, count his bullets. She counted with him. 12 rounds for the rifle, maybe 8 for the pistol he carried. Against how many men? She looked down at her hands, still stained with his blood and her own. Yesterday, she had been a settler woman, someone who cooked meals and mended clothes and dreamed of a house with glass windows. Today, she was something else, something harder, something that had looked death in the face and decided to spit in its eye. She thought about Thomas, about the life they had planned. It seemed like a dream now, distant and faded. That Anna was gone, killed in the canyon along with her husband. The woman sitting here, wounded and afraid but still breathing, she was someone new. Someone forged in blood and gunpowder. Chekanka, she said. He looked up from his work. When this is over, Anna said slowly, if we survive, I want you to teach me. Teach you what? How to fight, she said. How to shoot, how to survive, how to be like you. I never want to feel this helpless again. Chekanka studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. If we survive, he said, I'll teach you everything I know. Promise? I promise, he said. Anna leaned back against the rock, exhausted but somehow lighter. She had a purpose now. A future beyond just surviving the next few hours. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The sun climbed higher, burning away the morning chill. Somewhere in the distance, buzzards circled over the dead men. And Anna Harmon, who had been a wife, a settler, a woman with dreams of Oregon and timberland, began the long transformation into something her old self would never have recognized. A survivor in the truest sense of the word. They moved through the canyon like shadows, Chekanka leading the way with Anna following as best she could. Every step sent fresh pain lancing through her shoulder, but she bit down on it, refused to slow him down. He had wrapped her wound tighter before they left, fashioned a crude sling from his spare shirt to immobilize her arm. It helped, but not enough. The sun had climbed to its zenith by the time they reached what Chekanka called the choke point. It was a narrow passage between two massive rock formations, barely wide enough for two horses to pass side by side. Above, the walls rose 30 feet, creating natural ramparts. A small ledge ran along the eastern wall about 15 feet up, accessible by a series of natural handholds, worn smooth by centuries of wind and water. Up there, Chekanka said, pointing to the ledge. You'll have cover, high ground, and a clear line of sight down the passage. Anna looked at the climb, then at her injured shoulder. I can't make that. You can, he said firmly. I'll help you. He went first, testing each handhold, then reached down. Anna gripped his hand with her good arm, placed her feet where he indicated, and began to climb. The pain was excruciating. Twice, her vision went white and she nearly fell. But Chekanka's grip was iron. And somehow she made it to the ledge. She collapsed there, gasping, sweat pouring down her face despite the cool air. Chekanka climbed up beside her, moving with the ease of someone born to the rocks. He set down his pack, pulled out the rifle, checked it one more time. Then he drew the pistol from his belt and held it out to Anna. You know how to shoot? He asked. She shook her head. Thomas had never let her touch his guns, said it wasn't proper for a woman. Chekanka's expression darkened. Then you learn now, he said. He positioned himself beside her, showed her how to hold the weapon, how to thumb back the hammer, how to sight along the barrel. It kicks hard, he warned. Brace yourself. Squeeze the trigger slow. Don't jerk it. Anna held the pistol with trembling hands. It was heavier than she expected, cold and brutal in its simplicity. I don't know if I can kill someone. You won't have to, Chekanka said. Just fire in their direction. Make them think twice about rushing us. Fear is a weapon, too. He moved back down to the canyon floor, began arranging rocks and debris across the passage. Not enough to block it, but enough to slow horses, force riders to dismount or navigate carefully. He worked quickly, efficiently, his movements practiced. Anna watched him, committed every detail to memory. This was survival. This was what it took to stay alive in a land that wanted you dead. When he finished, he climbed back up to the ledge, settled in beside her. From their vantage point, they could see 100 yards down the passage in either direction. Anyone coming would be visible long before they arrived. It was as good a position as they were going to get. Now we wait, Chekanka said. He pulled jerky from his pack, offered her some. She took it, chewed mechanically. Her stomach was twisted in knots, but she forced herself to eat. Energy would matter when the shooting started. How many do you think will come? Anna asked quietly. Rourke runs with maybe 20 men, Chikanka said. We killed 8 yesterday and today. The 2 that got away will bring back everyone he has left. Figure 10, maybe 12, against the 2 of us. Against the terrain, Chikanka corrected. Against their own fear. Against the fact that they don't know what they're walking into. He looked at her. Soldiers win battles with numbers. Warriors win battles with knowledge of the land. Anna wanted to believe him, wanted to think that strategy and terrain could overcome a 6-to-1 disadvantage. But she had seen what bullets did to human bodies, had seen men fall and not get up. Numbers mattered, no matter how much Chikanka wanted to pretend otherwise. The afternoon stretched long and tense. They didn't talk much. Chikanka cleaned his rifle again, checked his ammunition, positioned spare rounds within easy reach. Anna practiced drawing back the pistol's hammer with her good hand, getting used to the weight, the balance. Her shoulder throbbed with each movement, but she ignored it. As the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, painting the canyon walls in shades of amber and crimson, Chikanka suddenly went still. "They're coming," he said quietly. Anna strained to hear. At first, there was nothing but wind and the distant cry of a hawk. Then faint but growing louder, the sound of hooves on stone. Multiple horses moving at a steady pace. Not rushing, not cautious. Confident, they appeared like specters emerging from heat shimmer. 12 riders spread in a loose formation. At their head rode a man on a massive black stallion, broad-shouldered and barrel-chested, wearing a long coat despite the heat. Even from this distance, Anna could feel the authority radiating from him. This was Rourke. He raised a hand and the column stopped just outside the passage. Rourke dismounted, walked forward alone, boots crunching on gravel. He stopped at the entrance, studied the rocks Chikanka had arranged, smiled like a man appreciating a good joke. "Chikanka!" he called out, his voice deep and carrying. "I know you're up there. I can smell you, you red bastard." Chikanka didn't respond, didn't move. His rifle remained steady, trained on Rourke's chest. "Now we can do this the easy way or the hard way," Rourke continued, walking slowly into the passage. His hands were visible, empty of weapons, but Anna could see the pistols on his belt, the knife strapped to his thigh. "Easy way, you give me the woman. I ask her a few questions about what she saw at the wagon train, and then we all go our separate ways. Maybe I even let you live, out of respect for the sport you've given me." He stopped in the middle of the passage, looked up at the walls, searching. "Or we do this the hard way. My men surround this position, smoke you out, and kill you both slow. Your choice, here's my choice," Chikanka said, his voice cutting through the canyon like a blade. Rourke's head snapped toward the sound, but before he could locate the source, Chikanka fired. The bullet struck the ground 2 inches in front of Rourke's boots, kicking up dust and rock fragments. Rourke stumbled backward, hand going to his pistol. "That was a warning," Chikanka called out. "Next one isn't." Rourke's face twisted with rage. "You stupid savage," he snarled. "You just signed your death warrant." He turned, strode back toward his men, shouting orders. The riders scattered, seeking cover behind rocks and scrub brush. Some dismounted, grabbed rifles from their saddles. Others circled, looking for alternate routes into the passage. "Here they come," Chikanka murmured. He settled into position, rifle stock pressed against his shoulder, eye aligned with the sight. "Stay low, stay quiet. Only shoot if they get close." Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. She gripped the pistol so hard her knuckles went white. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us now. Back to the story. Below, Rourke's men were advancing, using cover, moving in coordinated pairs. These weren't the disorganized bandits from yesterday. These were experienced fighters who had done this before. The first one to enter the passage was a thin man with a scraggly beard, carrying a rifle nearly as tall as he was. He moved cautiously, eyes scanning the walls. Chikanka let him come, let him get 15 yards into the passage. Then he fired. The man dropped without a sound, rifle clattering on stone. Immediately, gunfire erupted from outside the passage. Bullets whined overhead, chipped rock from the walls, filled the air with dust and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Anna pressed herself flat against the ledge, covered her head with her good arm. Chikanka worked the rifle's lever action, chambered another round, fired again. Another man fell. The attackers pulled back, regrouped. Shouting filled the canyon, angry and frustrated. They had expected an easy kill. Instead, they were bleeding. How many rounds left? Anna asked, her voice barely audible over the ringing in her ears. Enough, Chikanka said. But Anna saw him glance at the spare ammunition lined up beside him. Maybe 6 rounds? 7 at most. Against 10 men, a new sound reached them. Scraping, scuffing, coming from the western wall. Anna turned, saw movement. 3 men were climbing using ropes and handholds, trying to flank their position. They were 20 feet below, moving upward with determined speed. Chikanka, Anna said urgently, pointing. He swung the rifle around, fired. One of the climbers jerked, lost his grip, fell. His scream cut off abruptly when he hit the canyon floor. The other 2 kept climbing, faster now, knowing they had been spotted. Chikanka worked the lever, fired again, missed. The bullet sparked off rock inches from a climber's head. The man grinned, kept coming. Chikanka reached for another round, came up empty. Out, he said flatly. He dropped the rifle, drew a knife from his boot, long and wicked-looking. Anna, the pistol, she raised it with shaking hands, tried to aim at the closest climber. He was 15 feet away now, close enough that she could see the scar across his nose, the gap in his teeth. He saw her, laughed. Go ahead, girlie, he called up. Bet you never shot anyone in your... Anna pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly tore the pistol from her hand, drove pain through her injured shoulder like lightning. The bullet went wide, missed the climber by a foot, but the shock on his face was worth it. He hadn't expected her to actually shoot. She thumbed back the hammer, fired again. This time she didn't close her eyes. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spun him sideways. He lost his grip, grabbed desperately for the rope, missed. Well, the 3rd climber kept coming. He was 10 feet away now, close enough that Anna could smell the sweat and tobacco on him. She raised the pistol, squeezed the trigger, click. Empty. The man's grin widened. All out of luck, sweetheart. Chikanka moved like a striking snake. He lunged across the ledge, blade flashing in the fading sunlight. The knife took the climber in the throat, drove deep. Blood sprayed hot and wet. The man's eyes went wide, hands clutching at the wound, trying to hold back the flood. Chikanka twisted the blade, pulled it free. The man fell backward, tumbled down the rock face, crashed to the ground in a broken heap. Silence fell, sudden and absolute. No more gunfire, no more climbing. Just the wind and the sound of their own ragged breathing. Anna stared at the blood on Chikanka's hands, on his face, splattered across the front of his shirt. He'd looked like something from a nightmare, primal and savage. Then he looked at her, and his eyes were still human, still aware. Still fighting? Reload, he said, offering her ammunition from his belt. This isn't over. Anna took the bullets with numb fingers, fumbled to open the pistol's cylinder. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped 2 rounds. Chikanka helped her, his movements calm and patient despite the chaos. When the pistol was loaded again, he pressed it back into her hands. You did good, he said quietly. Better than most men I've fought beside. Anna wanted to feel proud, wanted to feel something other than the sick horror churning in her gut. She had just killed a man, shot him and watched him fall. The reality of it was nothing like she had imagined. No glory, no righteousness, just blood and screaming and the terrible weight of taking a life. I killed him, she whispered. You survived, Chikanka corrected. There's a difference. Below, Rourke's voice rang out. Enough, he shouted. Fall back, regroup. The sound of men withdrawing, horses being gathered, but not retreating, just pulling back out of rifle range. Chikanka crawled to the edge of the ledge, peered down carefully. They're not leaving, he said. They're setting up camp, planning to wait us out. We can't stay up here forever, Anna said. We have no water, no food. We have until dawn, Chikanka said. After that, the sun will cook us alive. He sat back, wiped blood from his knife on his pants. So we don't wait. We go to them, Anna stared at him. That's insane. It's the only move they won't expect, Chikanka said. They think we're trapped up here. Think they can starve us out or wait for us to make a mistake. They won't be watching for an attack. There are still 7 or 8 of them. 7 men sleeping around a fire, Chikanka said. Half-drunk, exhausted from a day of fighting. 2 of us moving quiet in the dark. The odds aren't as bad as you think, Anna wanted to argue. Wanted to point out all the ways this plan could go wrong. But looking at Chikanka's face, at the determination etched into every line, she realized he had already made up his mind. He was going to do this with or without her. "Teach me," she said. He looked at her questioningly. "You said you'd teach me to fight, to survive," Anna continued. "Start now. Teach me how to move in the dark, how to kill quietly. Whatever I need to know." Chikanka studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "First lesson," he said. "Fear is natural. Let it sharpen your senses, but don't let it control you. The moment you panic, you're dead." "I'm already terrified," Anna admitted. "Good," Chikanka said. "Terror keeps you alive. It's confidence that gets you killed." He spent the next hour teaching her how to move without sound, placing each foot carefully, testing weight before committing. How to breathe slowly, quietly, even when her heart was racing. How to use shadow and terrain to stay invisible. How to strike fast and certain if the moment came. As the sun finally set and darkness claimed the canyon, Chikanka checked his weapons one last time. The knife cleaned and sharpened. The pistol fully loaded. A length of rope coiled at his belt. He looked at Anna, at her pale face and determined eyes. "Last chance to stay here," he said. "I'm coming with you," Anna said. Her voice was steady, even though inside she was screaming. Chikanka smiled for the first time since she had met him. It transformed his face, made him look younger, almost boyish. "Then let's go teach these bastards what happens when they hunt the wrong people." They climbed down from the ledge as quietly as cats, melted into the shadows at the base of the canyon wall. In the distance, firelight flickered. Voices carried on the night air, laughing, boasting, already celebrating a victory they hadn't earned. Rourke's men had no idea what was coming for them. Anna followed Chikanka through the darkness, her heart pounding, her injured shoulder screaming with every movement. But she kept going, kept moving, because the alternative was dying, and she had decided back in that burning wagon train that she wasn't ready for death. Not yet, not when there was still so much fight left in her. Ahead, the firelight grew brighter. Shapes moved around it, men settling in for the night. Sentries posted at the perimeter, but lazy, not expecting trouble. Why would they? They had their prey cornered. Chikanka touched her arm, pointed. 2 sentries, standing maybe 30 feet apart, rifles slung over their shoulders, attention wandering. He made a gesture simple and clear. "You take the left, I take the right." At the same time, Anna's mouth went dry. She nodded. They separated, moving through the darkness like ghosts. Anna approached her target from behind, her boots making no sound on the sandy ground. The man was young, maybe 20, humming tunelessly to himself. He had no idea she was there until her shadow fell across him. He started to turn, mouth opening to shout. Anna raised the pistol, brought it down hard against the back of his skull. He dropped without a sound. She stood over him, shaking, waiting to see if he would get up. He didn't. Across the camp, Chikanka's sentry also went down, throat cut clean and quick. No sound, no struggle. Just there, one moment, gone the next. Chikanka appeared beside her, materialized out of the darkness. "Move," he whispered. They advanced toward the fire. Toward the men sleeping around it. Toward Rourke, sitting on a rock with a bottle in his hand. Toward the final confrontation that would determine whether they saw another sunrise. And Anna Harmon, who had never hurt anyone in her life, who had been taught that violence was a sin and women were meant to be gentle, gripped the pistol tight and prepared to do whatever it took to survive. The camp was arranged in a rough circle around the fire, 7 men sprawled on bedrolls in various states of consciousness. 2 were already snoring, dead to the world. 3 sat closer to the flames, passing a bottle between them and talking in low voices. The remaining 2 stood near the horses, checking saddles and gear. Rourke sat apart from them all, perched on a flat boulder like a king surveying his domain, the firelight casting his shadow long and dark across the ground. Chikanka motioned for Anna to stay low, to follow his lead. They crept forward, using the scattered rocks and scrub brush for cover. Every few feet, Chikanka would stop, listen, wait. Anna mimicked him, her breathing shallow, her every nerve screaming. The pistol in her hand felt like it weighed 100 pounds. They were 20 feet from the nearest sleeping man when one of the horses nickered softly, ears pricked forward. The two men by the saddles looked up, peered into the darkness. Anna froze, pressed herself flat against a boulder. Beside her, Chikanka had become part of the stone itself, utterly motionless. "You hear something?" one of the men asked, his hand drifting toward the rifle propped against a nearby rock. "Just the wind," the other replied, but his voice carried doubt. He took a step forward, squinting into the shadows. "Or maybe that damn Modoc finally got smart and ran." "Rourke don't think so," the first man said. "Says that savage is too stubborn to know when he's beat." "Well, if he comes down here, he's dead," the second man said. He spat into the dirt, turned back to his work. "No way two people take on this many guns and live." Anna felt Chikanka shift beside her, saw him slowly draw his knife. He glanced at her, his eyes reflecting firelight, and she understood. When he moved, she would move. When he struck, she would strike. There was no room for hesitation, no space for mercy. This was survival at its most brutal. Chikanka exploded from the shadows like a mountain lion. He crossed the distance to the nearest man in 3 strides, blade flashing. The man barely had time to register movement before the knife took him under the ribs, angled upward into his heart. Chikanka's other hand clamped over the man's mouth, muffling any sound. The man's eyes went wide, then glassy. Chikanka lowered him silently to the ground. The second man by the horses turned at the sound of scuffling, saw his companion falling, opened his mouth to shout. Anna raised the pistol, surprised by how steady her hands had become, and fired. The shot was deafening in the night air. The muzzle flashed bright as lightning. The bullet caught the man in the chest, punched him backward. He hit the ground hard, gasped once, went still. The camp erupted into chaos. Men scrambled for weapons, shouted warnings, dove for cover. The two who had been sleeping jerked awake, disoriented and vulnerable. Chikanka was already moving, rifle now in his hands, firing from the hip. One sleeper took a bullet to the throat, fell back into his bedroll. The other rolled away, came up with a pistol, fired wild. The shot went high, sparked off a rock behind Anna's head. She dropped flat, crawled behind a water barrel, her shoulders screaming in protest. Around her, the night had become a storm of gunfire and shouting. She peeked around the barrel, saw one of the men from the fire circle advancing on her position, rifle raised. She aimed, squeezed the trigger. The pistol bucked in her hand. The man stumbled, grabbed his leg, went down cursing. Chikanka was a whirlwind of violence, moving through the camp like death incarnate. He shot one man through the head, clubbed another with his rifle stock, sent a third sprawling with a kick to the knee. But there were too many, and they were recovering from the initial shock. Bullets chased him as he dove behind a wagon, wood splintering where the rounds hit. Rourke had risen from his boulder, pistol in each hand, roaring orders. "Spread out! Pin them down! Don't let them regroup!" he bellowed. His voice, cut through the chaos like a whip, brought discipline to the panicked men. They began moving with purpose, flanking, using cover, concentrating their fire. Anna realized they were losing. The surprise was gone, the numbers were against them, and Chikanka was pinned down with no clear shot. She looked around desperately, saw the stack of supply crates near the fire, saw the bottles of whiskey glinting in the firelight. An idea formed, reckless and dangerous. She broke from cover, sprinting toward the fire. Bullets whined past her, close enough to feel the displaced air. She grabbed 2 bottles, turned, hurled them into the flames. Glass shattered, alcohol ignited with a whoosh, sent flames leaping 10 feet high. Men screamed, scrambled back from the sudden inferno. The light was blinding, casting everything in stark relief. In that moment of confusion, Chikanka moved. He vaulted over the wagon, rifle blazing. 2 men went down before they even saw him coming. A third turned, fired, missed. Chikanka was on him in an instant, drove his knife up under the man's chin. The body crumpled. Anna ran toward Chikanka, her lungs burning, her vision tunneling. She saw movement to her left, turned, saw a man drawing a bead on Chikanka's back. She didn't think, just fired. The bullet took the man in the shoulder, spun him around. Not a kill shot, but enough. Chikanka glanced back, saw what she had done, nodded once. Then Rourke was there, stepping through the flames like the devil himself. His face was a mask of rage, both pistols raised. He fired at Chikanka, who dove behind a barrel. Fired at Anna, who threw herself flat. The bullets hammered into the ground inches from her head, kicking up dirt and stone. "You should have taken my offer," Rourke snarled, advancing on Anna's position. "Should have died quick and clean. Now I'm going to make you suffer." He loomed over her, pistols aimed at her face. Anna stared up at him, saw her death in his eyes, knew this was the end. Her pistol was empty, her body was broken, and there was nowhere left to run. A shadow rose behind Rourke. Chikanka moving with impossible speed, silent as smoke. His knife flashed in the firelight, drove toward Rourke's back. But Rourke was faster than he looked. He spun, caught Chikanka's wrist, twisted. The knife fell from nerveless fingers. Rourke's other hand came up, pistol pressed against Chikanka's stomach. "Got you!" Rourke hissed. Anna screamed, scrambled forward, grabbed the fallen knife. She drove it into the back of Rourke's leg with all her strength. He roared in pain, staggered, his grip on Chikanka loosening. Chikanka broke free, grabbed Rourke's gun hand, forced it upward. The pistol discharged into the air. The two men grappled, a brutal contest of strength and will. Rourke was bigger, heavier, but Chikanka was quicker, more desperate. They crashed to the ground, rolled through the dirt, each trying to gain advantage. Anna crawled toward them, knife still in her hand, looking for an opening. Rourke got on top, hands closing around Chikanka's throat. "Die, you red bastard," he growled, squeezing. Chikanka's face darkened. His hands clawed at Rourke's wrists, but the man's grip was iron. His eyes began to roll back. Anna lunged forward, drove the knife into Rourke's side. He jerked, gasped, his grip loosening. She pulled the blade free, stabbed again, and again, each thrust driven by fury and fear and the desperate need to save the man who had saved her. Blood poured hot over her hands, soaked into the earth. Rourke toppled sideways, clutching his wounds, his breath coming in wet gasps. Chikanka rolled away, coughing, sucking in air. Anna knelt between them, the bloody knife trembling in her hand, staring at what she had done. Rourke looked up at her, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You," he wheezed. "Just a woman. Just a—" Blood filled his mouth, choked off the words. He convulsed once, twice, then went still. His eyes stayed open, staring at nothing. The silence that followed was profound. Anna looked around the camp, saw bodies scattered everywhere. 7 men dead, maybe 8. The fire crackled and popped, the only sound in the vast darkness. Smoke rose into the star-filled sky. Chikanka sat up slowly, rubbing his throat. Bruises were already forming, dark and ugly. He looked at Anna, at the knife in her hand, at Rourke's body. "You saved my life," he said hoarsely. "You saved mine first," Anna replied. Her voice sounded distant, disconnected from her body. She looked down at her hands, at the blood coating them to the wrists. "Is this what it's like? Is this what you live with?" "Every day," Chikanka said quietly. He stood, swayed, steadied himself. "The first time you kill, it changes you. Take something you can never get back. But you did what you had to do. That matters." Anna dropped the knife, wrapped her arms around herself. She was shaking now, the adrenaline draining away, leaving only exhaustion and horror. "I stabbed him. I kept stabbing him. I couldn't stop because he would have killed me," Chikanka said. He moved to her side, placed a hand on her uninjured shoulder. "Because he would have killed you. You're alive because you were stronger than he was. Remember that." She looked up at him, at his bruised throat, his blood-spattered face, his eyes that held depths of pain she was only beginning to understand. "How do you live with it?" "With all the death." "By remembering why," he said simply. "By knowing that every person I've killed was trying to kill someone else. By believing that somewhere, somehow, it makes a difference." He glanced around the camp. "We need to move. Gunfire carries. If there are more of Rourke's men out there, they'll come to investigate." Anna nodded numbly. She let Chikanka help her to her feet, let him guide her toward the horses. Her legs felt like water. Her mind was a fog, but she kept moving, one foot in front of the other, Survive, that was all that mattered now. Chikanka selected 2 horses, the strongest-looking ones, and began transferring supplies. Water, food, ammunition, blankets. He worked quickly, methodically, years of experience guiding his hands. Anna watched, unable to help, her body finally giving out. She slumped against a wagon wheel, her eyes half closed. "Anna," Chikanka said sharply. She jerked awake, hadn't even realized she was falling asleep. "Stay with me. We're almost done." He finished loading the horses, then helped her mount. She swayed in the saddle, nearly fell. Chikanka steadied her, lashed her to the saddle horn with a length of rope. "Just hold on," he said. "I'll lead your horse. You just hold on." They rode out of the camp as the fire died down to embers. Behind them, the bodies lay where they had fallen, silent testament to the price of violence. The stars wheeled overhead, cold and distant. The desert stretched endless in every direction. Anna drifted in and out of consciousness as they rode. Sometimes she was aware of the horse's steady rhythm, of Chikanka riding beside her, of the wind on her face. Other times she was back in the camp, stabbing Rourke over and over, feeling his blood pour hot over her hands. She would jerk awake with a gasp, disoriented, terrified. "Easy," Chikanka would say. "You're safe. I've got you." And she would believe him, because what else could she do? Dawn was breaking when they finally stopped. They had ridden through the night, putting miles between themselves and the carnage. Chikanka had found a small cave, barely more than an overhang, but it offered shelter from the rising sun. He helped Anna dismount, caught her when her legs buckled. "Sleep," he said, laying her down on a blanket. "I'll keep watch." "You need sleep too," Anna mumbled, her eyes already closing. "I will," he promised. "After you—" Anna wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he couldn't protect her forever, that eventually his strength would give out. But sleep pulled her under like a riptide, and she surrendered to it gratefully. Her dreams were dark and violent, filled with blood and screaming, but at least they weren't real. When she woke, the sun was high overhead, blazing down with merciless intensity. Chikanka sat at the cave entrance, silhouetted against the bright light, rifle across his lap. He hadn't moved, hadn't slept. He just sat there, watching, waiting, protecting. Anna sat up slowly, her whole body one massive bruise. Her shoulder throbbed, but the pain was different now. Duller, more manageable. She unwrapped the bandage, examined the wound. The stitches were holding, no sign of infection. The skin around them was angry and red, but clean. "You're healing," Chikanka said without turning. "Faster than I expected. I'm stronger than I look," Anna said. She meant it as a joke, but it came out flat, hollow. Chikanka turned, studied her. "Yes," he said seriously. "You are. Most people would have broken by now. But you're still here, still fighting." "I don't feel strong," Anna admitted. "I feel like I'm falling apart." "That's normal," Chikanka said. "After your first real fight, your body remembers every moment of terror, every brush with death. It takes time to process, to accept what you've done." "How long?" "For some people, years. For others, never. They carry it until it crushes them." He looked away. "I can't tell you which one you'll be, only that you have a choice in how you carry it." Anna was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Teach me more." Chikanka looked at her questioningly. "You said you'd teach me to fight, to survive. We're not at the settlement yet. We have time. Teach me everything you can before we get there." "I don't want to feel helpless again." Chikanka studied her, weighing something in his mind. Then he nodded slowly. "All right," he said, "but understand this. Once you start down this path, there's no going back. You'll never be the person you were before. The things I teach you, they'll change you. Make you harder. Make you dangerous." "Good," Anna said. "Because the person I was before died in that canyon. I'm someone else now. Someone who needs to know how to survive in a world that wants me dead." Chikanka smiled, that rare expression that transformed his face. "Then let's begin," he said. "Lesson 2, how to track prey, and how to know when you're the one being hunted." Anna rose on shaky legs, walked to the cave entrance, stood beside him. Together they looked out at the vast expanse of desert, at the endless sky, at the hard land that had tried to kill them and failed. She felt something shift inside her, something fundamental. Fear was still there, but it no longer controlled her. Pain was still there, but it no longer defined her. She was alive. She had survived, and with Chikanka's help, she would learn to do more than just survive. She would learn to thrive in this brutal, beautiful, unforgiving land. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of sage and dust. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried, and Anna Harmon, who had been a wife, a victim, a killer, took the first real step toward becoming something new. A woman who belonged to no one but herself. They spent 3 days in the cave, resting, healing, preparing for the final push to the settlement. Chikanka used the time to teach Anna everything he could. How to read tracks in dust and sand, identifying animals from humans, fresh prints from old. How to find water by watching birds and insects, by reading the vegetation, by feeling the temperature change in the air. How to set snares for rabbits and squirrels, how to skin and prepare them. How to start a fire without matches, using friction and dry grass. But more than practical skills, he taught her how to think differently. How to see the land not as empty wilderness, but as a living thing, with patterns and rhythms. How to move through it, not as a stranger, but as part of it. How to trust her instincts, that primal sense that warned of danger before the conscious mind could process it. On the 4th morning, Anna woke before dawn. Her shoulder still ached, but she could move it now without crying out. The stitches pulled when she stretched, but they held. She was thinner than she had been, her dress hanging loose on a frame, hardened by days of survival. Her hands were calloused, her face sun-darkened. When she caught her reflection in a pool of water, she barely recognized herself. Chikanka was already awake, packing supplies onto the horses. He moved with quiet efficiency, every motion purposeful. Anna watched him work, this man who had become her teacher, her protector, her unlikely companion. She realized she knew almost nothing about him beyond what he had shared in fragments. His mother's death, his people's displacement, the years of violence that had carved him into something harder than the rocks around them. "Chikanka," she said softly. He looked up. "When we get to the settlement, what will you do?" He was quiet for a moment, checking a saddle strap. "Move on," he said finally. "There's always another job, another trail to follow." "You could stay," Anna said. "Start over like me. Find some peace." He smiled, but there was sadness in it. "Peace isn't for men like me," he said. "I've seen too much, done too much. Towns make me nervous. Too many walls, too many people. I belong out here in the open spaces, alone. Alone is safer," he said. "Can't lose what you don't have." Anna understood what he wasn't saying. That caring about people made you vulnerable. That loss hurt worse than any bullet. That it was easier to keep moving, keep fighting, than to risk attachment. She had felt the same way after Thomas died, after everything she knew was ripped away. But something had changed in the past days. She didn't want to be alone anymore. "What if I asked you to stay?" she said quietly. Chikanka looked at her, really looked at her, his dark eyes searching her face. "Why would you do that?" "Because you're the only person in this whole territory who's treated me like I matter," Anna said. "Not as property, not as something to use or protect or control. You've treated me like an equal, like someone worth saving." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "And because I think you're tired of being alone, even if you won't admit it." Chikanka turned away, ostensibly to adjust the packs, but Anna saw his shoulders tense. "You don't know what you're asking," he said. "A white woman and a Modoc man trying to build something together. People won't accept it. They'll make your life hell." "They've already made my life hell," Anna said. "I've been shot, stabbed, widowed, and hunted. I've killed men with my own hands. What more can they do to me that hasn't already been done?" "Plenty," Chikanka said darkly. "You don't know how cruel people can be when they see something they don't understand." "Then teach me," Anna said, moving closer. "Teach me how to face that too. You've taught me everything else." Chikanka looked at her for a long moment, conflict playing across his features. Finally, he shook his head, but there was no conviction in it. "You're stubborn." "I learned from the best," Anna said with a slight smile. They finished packing in silence, but something had shifted between them. A possibility had been spoken aloud, given shape and weight. Whether it would become reality remained to be seen, but at least now it existed in the space between them. They mounted up as the sun crested the horizon, painting the desert in shades of gold and orange. The settlement was a day's ride northeast, Chikanka said, maybe less if they pushed hard. They set out at a steady pace, conserving the horses' strength, alert for any sign of pursuit. But the land remained empty, silent except for wind and the occasional cry of a circling hawk. By midday, the terrain began to change. The flat desert gave way to rolling hills covered in scrub oak and juniper. Small creeks appeared, lined with cottonwood trees, their leaves whispering in the breeze. Signs of human habitation began to emerge. Fence lines, though many were broken and unmaintained. Abandoned homesteads, their roofs collapsed, windows empty as dead eyes. The land bore scars of settlement attempts that had failed, dreams that had died hard. What happened here? Anna asked, looking at a particularly sad ruin, its door hanging open like a slack mouth. Drought 3 years back, Chikanka said. Wells went dry, crops failed. People either moved on or died trying to stay. The land took back what was hers. Anna shivered despite the heat. It was a reminder that out here, nature was the ultimate authority. Guns and determination only counted for so much against a pitiless sky and unforgiving earth. As the afternoon waned, they crested a hill, and Anna saw it. The settlement. It wasn't much, just a collection of wooden buildings clustered around a crossroads. Maybe 20 structures in total. A general store with a covered porch. A blacksmith's forge, smoke rising from its chimney. A church with a modest steeple. A saloon with faded paint advertising whiskey and beer. Houses scattered beyond, some well-maintained, others barely standing. But to Anna, who had spent the last week living in caves and fleeing from death, it looked like paradise. They rode down slowly, drawing attention. People stopped what they were doing to watch. A woman hanging laundry. A man shoeing a horse. Children playing in the street. Their expressions ranged from curious to suspicious. Anna felt their eyes on her torn dress, her bandaged shoulder, her sun-darkened face. Felt them lingering on Chikanka, on his long hair and buckskin clothes, on the rifle across his saddle. Chikanka guided them to the general store, dismounted, helped Anna down. Her legs were unsteady after hours in the saddle. He steadied her, his hand on her elbow, then stepped back quickly, aware of the watching eyes. The store owner emerged, a thick man with a grey beard and suspicious eyes. "Help you?" he asked, his tone making it clear that help was the last thing he wanted to offer. "We need supplies," Anna said, finding her voice. "Food, medical supplies, cloth for bandages. We can pay." She reached for the small pouch Chikanka had given her, coins taken from Rourke's men. Blood money, but money nonetheless. The owner's eyes flicked to Chikanka, then back to Anna. "We serve whites only," he said flatly. "Your friend there needs to wait outside." Anna felt anger flare hot in her chest. "This man saved my life," she said, her voice hard. "Multiple times." "He's staying with me, not in my store, he ain't," the owner said, crossing his arms. "I don't care what he did. Rules are rules." "Then your rules are garbage," Anna snapped. Several onlookers gasped. A woman muttered about propriety. But Anna was past caring. "This man has more honor in his little finger than you have in your entire body. If he's not welcome, then neither am I. We'll take our money elsewhere." She turned to leave, but a voice stopped her. "Now hold on just a minute." An older woman had approached, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, wearing a simple but clean dress. She looked at Anna with keen assessment. "You're hurt, child, and you look like you've been through hell." "I have," Anna said simply. The woman nodded. "Thought so. I'm Martha Crenshaw. My husband's the minister here. Why don't you both come to the church? We've got a well, clean water, and I can take a look at that shoulder." She looked directly at Chikanka. "You're welcome too. God's house doesn't turn away those in need, no matter what color they are." The store owner sputtered. "Martha, you can't just—" "Can't I?" Martha said, her voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "Last I checked, Thomas, the good book says we should show hospitality to strangers. Or have you been skipping that part during services?" Thomas, the store owner, flushed red, but said nothing more. Martha gestured for them to follow. "Come on, let's get you settled. You can tell me what happened, and we'll figure out what comes next." Anna and Chikanka exchanged glances, then followed Martha through the dusty street. The church was small but well kept, whitewashed wood with a simple cross above the door. Inside, it was cool and dim, smelling of old wood and candle wax. Pews lined either side of a center aisle, leading to a modest altar. Martha led them to a back room, clearly living quarters for her and her husband. She gestured to chairs, fetched water from a barrel, poured it into a basin. "Sit," she commanded, and Anna found herself obeying. Martha unwrapped the bandage on Anna's shoulder, examined the wound with practiced eyes. "This is good work," she said, surprised. "Clean stitches, no infection. Who did this?" "I did," Chikanka said quietly from where he stood near the door. Martha looked at him with new respect. "You have medical training?" "My mother was a healer," he said. "She taught me before she died." Martha nodded, asked no more questions. She cleaned the wound with fresh water, applied a poultice that smelled of herbs, wrapped it in clean white cloth. "Another week and you can take the stitches out," she said to Anna. "You're lucky. This could have gone very badly." "I know," Anna said. "I wouldn't be here without him." Martha studied them both, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "You two have a story," she said. "I can see it written all over you. Death and violence and survival. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. But if you need help, if you need a place to stay while you figure things out, you're welcome here." Anna felt tears prick her eyes, the first she had shed since Thomas died. Kindness, after so much cruelty, was almost harder to bear than the violence had been. "Thank you," she whispered. Martha patted her hand. "No thanks needed. It's what decent people do for each other." She stood, moved to a cupboard, pulled out bread and cheese. "Eat something. You both look half-starved. I'll go find my husband, tell him we have guests. He'll want to meet you." She left them alone. Anna and Chikanka sat in silence for a moment. Then Anna reached for the food. She was ravenous, realized she hadn't eaten properly in days. Chikanka ate too, though more slowly, his eyes constantly moving, checking windows and doors, unable to fully relax even here. "She's kind," Anna said between bites. "Rare out here," Chikanka agreed. "Most people, kindness gets beaten out of them by this land. She must be stronger than she looks." The door opened and Martha returned with a man who could only be her husband. He was tall and thin with gentle eyes and a warm smile. "I'm Thomas Crenshaw," he said, extending his hand to Anna, then to Chikanka. The Modoc hesitated, surprised, then shook it. "Martha tells me you've had a rough journey. You're safe here, both of you. Stay as long as you need." Over the next hour, Anna told them an edited version of what had happened. The attack on the wagon train, Thomas's death, Chikanka tracking the killers, the days of running and fighting. She left out the worst details, the most violent moments. But even the sanitized version made Martha gasp, and Reverend Crenshaw's face darken with anger. "Rourke," the Reverend said, spitting the name like a curse. "We've heard of him. His men have terrorized this whole territory. The law won't touch him, says they don't have jurisdiction or evidence or some such nonsense. Good people have died because no one will stand up to him. He won't be killing anyone else," Chikanka said quietly. "We made sure of that." The Reverend looked at him, understanding dawning. "I see," he said slowly. "Then you've done this territory a service, though I suspect not everyone will see it that way." He paused. "What are your plans now?" Anna and Chikanka looked at each other. "I don't know," Anna admitted. "I have nothing. No family, no money beyond what we took from Rourke's men. No skills that are worth anything out here." "Oh, that's not true," Martha said firmly. "You survived when most wouldn't have. That takes intelligence, courage, adaptability. Those are valuable skills anywhere." She looked at her husband. "We've been talking about getting help with the church, teaching the children, tending to the sick, helping new settlers get established. It's more work than two old people can handle." "You're offering me a job?" Anna asked, disbelieving. "I'm offering you a place," Martha corrected. "A purpose. A chance to build something new. If you want it." Anna's throat tightened. She looked at Chikanka, saw him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What about him?" she asked. Martha followed her gaze. From what you've told us, you're alive because of him. That counts for something in my book. If he wants to stay, he's welcome. We could use someone with his skills too. Hunting, tracking, protecting the settlement from threats." She smiled slightly. "God knows Thomas here can barely shoot a rifle without hurting himself." The Reverend chuckled. "It's true, I'm afraid. I'm much better with words than weapons." Chikanka stood abruptly. "I appreciate the offer," he said. "But I should go. Anna needs to start building a new life. I'll only complicate things." "Wait," Anna said, standing too, despite the protest from her shoulder. She crossed to him, looked up at his weathered face. "You promised you'd teach me everything you know." "We're not done yet." She paused, then added more softly, "And I meant what I said earlier. I don't want you to go." Chikanka looked down at her, conflict warring in his dark eyes. "Anna, you don't understand what you're asking. The life I've lived, the things I've done, they don't just wash away. And people here, they'll make you choose, me or them. They always do." "Then I choose you," Anna said simply. "These people seem kind, but I don't know them. I know you. I trust you. If staying here means losing you, then we'll go somewhere else." Martha cleared her throat gently. "If I may," she said, "I think you're underestimating this community. We're not perfect, Lord knows. There's plenty of ignorance and prejudice to go around. But we're also survivors. We know what it takes to make it out here. And we know that good people are rare, regardless of their background." She looked at Chikanka. "Stay for a week. See how it goes. If it doesn't work out, no one will stop you from leaving. But give it a chance." Chikanka was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. "1 week," he agreed. Anna felt something loosen in her chest, something she hadn't realized was clenched tight. Relief, yes, but also hope. The first real hope she had felt since the arrow had pierced her shoulder and changed her life forever. The first week became 2, then a month. Chikanka stayed in a small cabin at the edge of the settlement, keeping to himself mostly, but taking on work when it was offered. He hunted, brought in deer and elk that fed families through the winter. He scouted for threats, drove off a pack of wolves that had been harassing livestock. He fixed broken fences and taught the young men how to track and shoot. Anna worked with Martha, learning to tend the sick, teaching children their letters and numbers, helping new settlers navigate the harsh realities of frontier life. She was good at it, discovered she had a talent for organization and a gift for making people feel heard. Her shoulder healed, the scar a reminder of everything she had survived. Not everyone accepted them. There were mutterings, cold looks, a few outright confrontations. One man, a recent arrival from the east, complained loudly about having a savage in the settlement. Chikanka ignored him until the man made the mistake of insulting Anna. The fight was short and brutal, ending with the man nursing a broken nose and reconsidering his opinions. But more often, people surprised Anna. Families invited them to dinner. Women asked Chikanka to teach them how to preserve meat. Men sought his advice on the best places to hunt. Slowly, grudgingly, the settlement accepted them as part of the community. On a cool evening, 6 months after their arrival, Anna sat on the porch of the church, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. Chikanka approached, sat beside her without speaking. They had developed a comfortable silence, born of shared experience and mutual understanding. "I've been thinking," Anna said eventually. "About what?" "About how strange it is that the worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best thing," she said. "If that wagon train hadn't been attacked, if Thomas hadn't died, if you hadn't found me, I'd probably be in Oregon right now, trying to make a life I never really wanted." "Survival changes people," Chikanka said. "Forces you to figure out what really matters, and what matters to you." Anna asked, looking at him. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "This, right here. A place where I'm not just a savage or a killer. Where people know my name and value what I can do. Where I don't have to sleep with one eye open." He paused. "And you matter." Anna felt warmth spread through her chest. "You matter to me too," she said softly. "More than I thought possible." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell and stars began to emerge. In the distance, lamplight flickered in windows. Voices carried on the evening air. laughter and conversation, the sounds of people living their lives. It was ordinary and precious, and more than either of them had dared hope for. Anna thought about the woman she had been, the widow who had stumbled into this settlement half dead and desperate. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, harder, but also more alive. She had learned that survival wasn't just about staying breathing. It was about finding reasons to keep breathing, about building something worth protecting. She thought about Thomas sometimes, wondered what he would think of who she had become. Would he recognize her? Would he approve? She didn't know, and increasingly she found she didn't care. Her life now was her own, built on choices she had made, shaped by experiences that had forged her into something new. "Thank you," she said to Chikanka. "For what?" "For not giving up on me when it would have been easier to leave me behind," Anna said. "For teaching me to fight. For showing me I'm stronger than I ever knew. You would have found that strength eventually," Chikanka said. "I just helped you find it faster." Anna reached over, took his hand. His fingers were rough, calloused, marked by years of hard living. But they were also warm, and they wrapped around hers with surprising gentleness. "Still," she said, "thank you." They sat like that as night deepened, two survivors who had found something neither expected in the wake of violence and loss. Not just safety, but belonging. Not just survival, but a life worth living. The wind carried the scent of sage and wood smoke. Somewhere in the darkness a coyote called. And Anna Harmon, who had been so many things, settler's wife and widow and killer and student and teacher, finally felt like she had found where she belonged. In a small settlement on the edge of civilization, with a Modoc warrior beside her and a future stretching out like the endless western sky. 5 years had passed since the day Anna Harmon rode into the settlement with an arrow wound in her shoulder and a Modoc scout by her side. The town had grown in that time, doubled in size, with new families arriving each season, drawn by word of good land and decent people. The church had been expanded, a school built beside it, and the main street now boasted a proper hotel alongside the general store and saloon. Anna stood in the doorway of the small cabin she and Chikanka had built together on a plot of land at the settlement's edge. It was modest but sturdy, with glass windows she had insisted on, and a porch where they sat most evenings watching the sun set over the hills. Behind the cabin, a garden flourished under her careful tending, rows of vegetables and herbs that fed them through the long winters. She was different now in ways both visible and invisible. Her hands were harder, scarred from work and weather. Her face had lines that hadn't been there before, etched by sun and experience. She wore her hair shorter, practical for the life she led. Her dresses were simpler, made for movement rather than appearance. She carried a small pistol in a holster at her hip, always loaded, a habit she had never broken. But the biggest change was in her eyes. They held a confidence, a certainty that came from knowing exactly what she was capable of surviving. She had been tested by fire and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken. Chikanka emerged from the barn, leading their horse. He moved with the same fluid grace he always had, though there was a contentment in him now that had been absent when they first met. He still scouted, still hunted, still taught the young men of the settlement the skills that kept them alive. But he also laughed more, spoke more freely, allowed himself to be part of the community in ways he once thought impossible. Their relationship had been the subject of much speculation and some controversy over the years. They had never married in the traditional sense, no ceremony in the church, despite Martha's gentle suggestions. But everyone in the settlement knew they belonged to each other in ways that went deeper than any legal document. They were partners in the truest sense, equals who had earned each other's respect through shared hardship. Anna walked down the porch steps to meet him. "Going somewhere?" she asked. "Marshal sent word," Chikanka said, checking the saddle. "There's been trouble 2 days ride south. Bandits hitting wagon trains again. They want someone to track them." Anna felt the familiar twist of worry in her gut, but she didn't try to stop him. This was who he was, what he did. She had learned years ago that loving someone meant accepting all of them, including the parts that scared you. How long will you be gone? she asked. "A week, maybe 2, he said. He looked at her, his dark eyes soft. "You'll be all right?" "I've got my students to teach, the sick to tend, and a garden that won't weed itself," Anna said with a slight smile. "I'll manage." She paused, then added, "Just come back in one piece. I'm too old to go chasing after you again." Chikanka smiled, that rare expression that transformed his whole face. "You're 30 years old." "Oddly ancient. I feel ancient sometimes," Anna admitted. "When I think about everything we've been through, we survived," Chikanka said simply. "That's what matters." He mounted his horse, looked down at her. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you." "What?" "The Reverend approached me last week," he said. "Asked if I'd be willing to serve on the town council. Said the settlement needs voices like mine, people who understand the land and the threats we face." Anna felt pride swell in her chest. "What did you tell him?" "I said I'd think about it," Chikanka said. "Wanted to talk to you first." "You should do it," Anna said firmly. "You've earned a place at that table. More than most." He nodded slowly. "We'll talk about it when I get back." He hesitated, then leaned down from the saddle. Anna reached up and they kissed, brief but meaningful. When they pulled apart, he said quietly, "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving me a reason to come back," he said. Then he turned the horse and rode out, disappearing down the trail that led south toward whatever danger awaited. Anna watched until he was out of sight, then returned to the cabin. Inside, on the mantel above the fireplace, sat a small wooden box. She opened it, looked at the contents. A pressed flower from her mother's funeral, a button from Thomas's shirt, the only thing she had kept from her old life, the broken shaft of the arrow that had changed everything, and a small carved figure Chikanka had made for her, a woman standing with a rifle, strong and unbowed. She closed the box gently, returned it to its place. The past was important, but it didn't define her anymore. She had built something new from the ashes of what was lost, something stronger precisely because it had been forged in fire. That evening she sat on the porch as the sun set, a cup of coffee in her hands. Martha came by, as she often did, settled into the chair beside her. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the sky turn from gold to crimson to purple. "You know," Martha said eventually, "when you first arrived here, I wasn't sure you'd make it. You looked so broken, so lost." "I was," Anna said quietly. "But look at you now," Martha continued. "Teaching our children, healing our sick, managing this place on your own when Chikanka's away. You've become one of the strongest people in this settlement." Anna smiled. "I had good teachers." "You had good instincts," Martha corrected. "We just helped you trust them." She paused, then added, "You're happy, aren't you?" Anna considered the question. Happy was such a simple word for something so complex. She had lost so much, seen such terrible things, done things that still haunted her nightmares. But she had also found purpose, built a life of her own choosing, loved and been loved in return. "Yes," she said finally. "In ways I never expected, but yes. I'm happy." Martha patted her hand. "Good, you deserve it, child." "You both do." After Martha left, Anna remained on the porch until full dark. Stars emerged one by one, the same stars that had watched over her that terrible night in the canyon, that had guided her through the desert, that had witnessed her transformation from victim to survivor to something more. She thought about the woman who had sat beside Thomas on that wagon train, heading west toward a future she had never really wanted. That woman had been shaped by other people's expectations, living a life that had been chosen for her rather than by her. That woman was dead, killed in the canyon along with everything she had known. But from that death had come something new. A woman who knew her own strength, who made her own choices, who had learned that survival wasn't just about staying alive, but about deciding what kind of person you wanted to be in the face of impossible odds. Anna rose, went inside, prepared for bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new students to teach, new problems to solve. And in a week or two, Chikanka would return, and they would continue building the life they had claimed from the brutal, beautiful, unforgiving land as she drifted towards sleep. Anna's last thought was simple but profound. She had been tested by fire and emerged not as ash but as steel, and that made all the difference. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.